I must begin my tale with me at 13 years old. Even though I was small for my age, I was a thoroughly obnoxious child. If I didn't get what I wanted, I threw a tantrum. I bullied anybody I could, especially if they were younger or smaller than me. I stole the odd thing from shops. I was under adult age, so the police couldn't do much to me. My father was out of the picture. He left with the next-door neighbor when I was 5, which left my mother, Joyce, and me. After that, I gave my mother hell, not because she deserved it, but she just had no control over me whatsoever. I think I was born to be a troublemaker. It came to the point one day, I had bunked off of school again, and that was when my mother just snapped. She phoned the helpline at the Children's Care Services and told them that she could no longer control me, and could they help. They already knew about me from the reports they got from other people and the different services. The next day a woman came around, and she and my mother went into the lounge and shut the door, then talked to each other. It appears my mother said, "I have tried my best with him, but I can't control him at all. We have been to counseling, and he called the counselor something I won't even repeat. I don't know what to do now. I can't take it anymore." Then she just burst into tears. I thought it was quite funny, really, a grown woman crying, stupid woman. They were in there for hours. I could hear them talking, but not what they were saying. They had started to talk very quietly. There were lots of ruffling of papers. Then everything came to a sudden stop. She came out with mother, and after shaking hands and smiling to each other, the woman left. It was 3 weeks later that an envelope came addressed to my mother. She went into her bedroom to read it, closing her bedroom door behind her. When she came out, she called me into the lounge of ours and said, "Harry, that's me. They have given you a final chance by the lady who came to see me. She deals with children like you, who have lost their moral compass," as she put it. "She has offered you a place in her own private school. And I have accepted it for you." I just looked at her with a smug look on my face. It wouldn't be long before I got kicked out from there and I would be back home again. Mother carried on. "It's a live-in school, like a boarding school but much smaller, so you will be able to come home on the holidays. It might help us both to have a break for a little while." I smirked again, thinking to myself, up and over the wall when I want you mean. So, the following Sunday mother started getting all my clothes ready. She said, "Ms. Birch told me that they will provide you with your uniform when you get there, so I was not to worry about packing too many clothes for you." I laughed, saying, "Birch, like the tree, as thick as that is she." Mother replied, "Don't be so nasty, Harry, we're trying to help you." "Tell her to pee off," I said. "I don't need any help from anyone, especially if they're called bitch tree." I then laughed at my own joke. Mother just sighed. "The car is coming for you in an hour. Is there anything else you want to take with you? If you've forgotten anything, I can post it to you later." The car arrived dead on time. My mother went to hug and give me a kiss, but I just shrugged her off and got into the car. As we drove away, I could see her smiling at me, which I thought was a bit strange at the time. The drive took about 6 hours. We didn't stop once. I had to sit in the back where the windows were blacked out so I couldn't even see where we were going. When I tried to speak to the driver, he ignored me. So, I told him to F off. He just smiled. When I asked for a stop to go to the toilet, he replied, "We stop when we get there and nowhere else." Then he closed the partition between us. I shouted at him, but he couldn't or wouldn't hear me. When we got to the place, it was like an old converted house. I had no idea where we were. All I could see for miles were trees and grass. The next thing I knew was the driver opening the door so that I could get out. As I stepped out, there was that woman, Ms. Birch, waiting for me. She said, "Hello, Harry, I hope you have had a pleasant trip." I looked at her and shrugged, saying, "All right, I suppose." She looked at me and the smile had gone from her face. "Since this is your first day, we will let that slip, but as from tomorrow you will start afresh, consequences and all." I just shrugged again. I was taken to my room. It was quite small and consisted of a wardrobe, a dressing table, a small table, and a hard-backed chair. The problem was it was all in different shades of pink. I looked at Bitchy and said, "This is a girl's room." She looked at me smiling, saying, "And?" I raised my voice, saying, "Well, I'm not sleeping here, I want a boy's room." Again, smiling she said, "You could have a boy's room, but we have no boys here." "What am I then?" I screamed. "Well, we will have to wait and see, won't we?" She then turned around and went outside and closed the door. Then I heard a key turning in the lock. I flung my suitcase at the door, then started banging on it as hard as I could, swearing at her with every bang. After about 20 minutes I realized the door was made of old oak, so there was no chance of me knocking it down. My cries and abuse for someone to come and let me out went unheeded. I said to myself, "You wait until tomorrow, then you will see what I'm capable of." I went to the wardrobe to see if there were any bedclothes there, as now my temper was thawing, and I was starting to get cold. As I opened the wardrobe door, half of it was full of bedclothes, all in pink. I slammed the door shut and started shouting again. I picked up my suitcase to get a jumper out. When I opened it, there was nothing in there. I threw it against the wall, cursing as I did. Suddenly a voice came over a speaker in my room. All it said was, "Lights out, girls." Then the room was in blackness. I shouted, "What the hell is going on here?" After about another hour, Harry's stomach was really grumbling, and he was so thirsty, he didn't know what to do. Then a voice came over the speaker, "If there's a Sophia here, could she please speak up, as we have a special evening breakfast for her. It is a sausage, beans, eggs and rashers with bread and butter and tea or coffee." Harry's mouth was drooling. That was his favorite food. He now had a choice: answer to Sophia, or get no food, and he was starving. To Henry, what real choice did he have? Did he answer to a female name or swallow his pride and eat? As his stomach rumbled again, even more loudly this time, he knew what he had to do. He shouted back at the speaker, gritting his teeth as he said, "This is Sophia here. Can I please have my special breakfast now?" Ms. Birch smiled. "Round one to me. He will answer to Sophia from now on." "Why, hello Sophia, I thought we had lost you," said Ms. Birch. "I'm so glad we found you again, my girl. Your breakfast is on its way to you now. Do enjoy it." His light suddenly came on. Within 5 minutes Harry or Sophia heard the key being turned in the lock. Harry waited on the bed to see who was bringing it. Hopefully, it was another boy or girl he could make his ally. When the door was fully opened, he got a great big shock. Standing there was a woman of considerable size, which to him looked more like muscle than fat. She came in with his breakfast on the tray. It was everything Ms. Birch said. The woman looked at him and said in a very firm voice, "This is for Sophia. Is that you, girl?" Harry started to say something, when the woman said, "If you're not Sophia, then this is not for you." "So, are you Sophia or not, girl?" Looking at the plate and smelling the food, Harry crashed and replied, "Yes, I'm Sophia." "That's a good girl, then this is yours. By the way, I am your house mother, and you will stand when I come in, and you call me matron. Do you understand?" She wasn't telling or suggesting, she was giving him a direct order, no ifs or buts, just do it. Harry replied, "Yes, matron." "Good girl," she said, then left the room, locking the door behind her. An hour passed when the matron returned. "Have you finished yet, Sophia?" Harry stood up and said, "Yes, matron." She pressed a button in the wall and a door slid back, revealing a shower and toilet, again all done in pink. "Now, Sophia, go and have a very good shower. I will be inspecting you afterwards, and woe betide you if you haven't cleaned yourself properly, then I will do it for you. Do you understand, girl?" Harry replied quietly, "Yes, matron." When she had left, now full of food and drink, Harry started to get angry again. He said out loud to himself, "Why the hell do they keep calling me Sophia and a girl? What are they, a load of perverts or something? And what's this being locked in? Am I a prisoner or what? I'm a boy, you silly sods. Can't you see that? A boy, not a girl. Fuck you and your weird stuff. I'm not doing anything else you want until you call me by my right name." The voice came over the speaker again. "Well, Sophia, that's not very ladylike, is it? I have a good mind to get matron to wash your mouth out with soap and water. And to answer your first question, your mother has given me parental rights over you for a year or longer if need be. Also, your name has been officially changed to Sophia. Harry no longer exists. The more you try to fight my regime, the harder it will be for you. When you leave here, you will be a changed person, that I can guarantee." Harry, or should I say Sophia, sat down on her bed and cried, but the boy still in her wanted still to rebel. There was a knock on his door and a voice said, "Well, Sophia, are you showered yet or not?" Harry shouted back, "No, and I'm not going to." "Well, then my girl, I suppose I will have to come in and do it myself for you." Harry heard the key unlocking the door. His stomach began to flutter as the matron walked in with a face full of displeasure and almost hatred. Harry's legs began to tremble. She walked over to him and tore his clothes off, leaving him naked. Then she dragged him to the shower and turned on the cold tap, saying, "Sophia, if you had done what I asked you to do, you could have been having a nice warm shower now, instead of this. But this was your choice, no one else's." She began by scrubbing him down, taking no notice of his cries until she had washed him all over, and it wasn't done gently. She then dragged him out of the shower and gave him a large pink soft towel to dry himself down. As she left the room she said, "Now on your bed is your night clothes, so change into them and get into bed, understand?" On the bed lay a white cotton nightie and a pair of white girl's panties. "I'm not wearing this," he said. The door opened again. It was Matron. "Do you need any help to put your nightclothes on, Sophia?" After the shower he just had from her, he soon backed down, saying, "No, Matron, I can manage." She stood there while he put them on and then got himself into bed. "That's a good girl," she replied. "It's so easy when you do as you are told, isn't it, Sophia?" "Yes, Matron," I replied between my gritted teeth. The next morning came. I had slept well because of the long journey. The lights suddenly came on, and the speaker said, "Good morning, girls." My door was unlocked, and Matron stepped in. "Sophia, your new uniform is in the wardrobe. I want you dressed in it within the next 20 minutes or again I will do it for you. Do you understand, girl?" All I could reply between sobs were, "Yes, Matron." She then left and closed the door behind her, this time not locking it. I washed and dried myself in the soft fluffy towel, which made me feel somewhat better. Then I went to the neat pile of clothes in the wardrobe that I was to wear and got the shock of my life. There was a pair of a white girl's panties, a white training bra, a white almost see-through girl's blouse, a blue thin jumper and a tartan skirt with a white petticoat and white socks and a pair of Mary Jane shoes. My jaw nearly hit the floor. They expected me, a boy, to wear girl clothes. Not on your Nelly, I thought. There is no way this is going to happen. Then I remembered the shower and the matron. What the hell was I going to do? It took me 10 minutes before I gave in. I knew that the matron could quite easily do what she wanted to do to me, and it wouldn't be a gentle way either. So, I grabbed the panties and put them on. I must admit they felt much better than boys. They were so much softer. Why the hell was I thinking about that? Next came the socks, which had a pretty flower on each side and a lace ruffle at the top. I put the training bra on with some difficulty but managed it in the end. The blouse was a completely different thing. For a start, the buttons were on the wrong side, which would have been all right if you were left-handed. I was not. It took me 3 attempts to get the buttons in the right place. The blouse also had a small ruffled collar and ruffled cuffs. Next was the petticoat and skirt. I managed these without too much difficulty. The shoes had a 1.5-inch heel on them, which when I walked felt very strange, but comfortable. I went to the dressing table and brushed my hair. As I did, I looked in the mirror and saw a girl/boy, which I found very disturbing. Before I had a chance to think anymore, there was a knock on the door. It was the matron. "Are you changed yet, Sophia?" I immediately stood up and replied, "Yes, matron." She came in and saw me. She smiled and said, "Now doesn't that feel better after your shower? And I will say you look a very smart girl. Well done, Sophia, full marks." I smiled and said, "Thank you, matron." "Now follow me," she said. I was dreading it. Where were we going? Who was going to see me dressed up in girls' clothes? I felt like a lamb going to the slaughter. We arrived at Ms. Birch's office. They told me to knock and wait until I was told to enter. After about 5 minutes of waiting, a voice said, "Come in, Sophia." I opened the door and there she was sitting behind her desk, smiling at me. "I am so pleased that you changed into your new uniform by yourself, Sophia. It looks very smart and pretty on you." I started to clench my fists into a ball. A rage was coming on. I could feel it. Before I could do or say anything, Miss Birch got up and went to a cupboard and opened the door. There were canes lined up in a row, starting with a very thin one to a very wide one, which looked as if it had lots of use. My fists started to unclench. "That's a good girl," she said. "I believe we understand each other a bit more now. I called you in today to explain our rules to you, and the consequences of not following them to the letter." She went back and sat in her chair while I had to stand in front of her desk with my hands resting in front of me. Then she began, "First, if I will tell you why you are here, it's simply because your mother and the local authorities do not know what to do with you anymore. At the moment you are just a thoroughly obnoxious boy who has no regard at all for anyone or anything around him, so they have sent here you as a last chance for you to turn your life around. And when I say around, I mean that literary. As from now, Harry has gone and only Sophia exists, and you will answer to that name. You will be treated as a girl at all times, you will attend all Sophie's classes without hesitation, including home economics, dressmaking, and manners expected from a young lady, plus of course your normal lessons. If you disobey or cause trouble in any form, then you will be caned with your skirt lifted in front of your class. Your teacher, for whatever she thinks is appropriate, will select your cane size. Do you understand this, Sophia?" It took me a while to realize what she had been saying: dressmaking, cooking, manners, those canes, Sophia. My face went pale, very pale. What was I to do or say? I heard the door open as Matron came in. I needed time to think, to plan how to get out of here. So, I looked at Miss Bitch and said, "Yes, I understand, Miss Birch." She smiled at me and said, "I'm so pleased with your reply, Sophia. I think you will do well here." I just smiled back and said, "Thank you, Miss Birch. I think it will all work out well too." I was told to follow Matron to go to my first lesson. We arrived at a classroom door where Matron knocked and waited. A few minutes later a woman's voice called out, "Come in." As we entered I quickly looked around the room. There were about a dozen girls there. I expected them to laugh or snigger, but there wasn't a sound. Matron said to the woman, "Miss Jameson, this is our new girl Sophia." "Thank you, Matron," she replied, and then looked me all over from head to foot. "My name is Miss Jameson, and I will be your teacher for manners and etiquette. I see that you have neither at the moment, so I will give you some grace to start with, but after that everything is up to you, Sophia. Now girls, stand up one at a time and give our new girl Sophia a welcome and your name." All the girls did this. It was then I realized that they weren't all girls by a long way. There may have been one or two, but no more. They gave me a seat at the front. For the next 4 hours, we were taught all about posture, rising from a table, sitting at a table, how to walk, and 1,000 other things. Of course, I failed on every one. But Miss Jameson said at the end of the class, "It is to be expected, Sophia, as you have never been taught, but you will improve with time." I arrived back in my room and was told to get ready for the evening meal. I went to the wardrobe to find a new pink frilly blouse and a mid-length black skirt there, along with a pair of 2.5-inch heeled shoes. That's it, I thought, the time for a plan. I said to myself, right tonight after dinner when we go back to our rooms and the lights have gone out, that's when I can sneak out. We can't be very far from a house or village. I should be able to make it there, then home. I wish I could see their faces in the morning when they discover I'm gone. I then chuckled to myself. If only I had known, I could have saved myself a lot of pain and embarrassment, but we always have to learn the hard way, don't we? I dressed in this new blouse and skirt, and struggled all evening with the heels. I felt if I were on stilts. The strangest thing was that I ended up trying to do what they had taught me this afternoon by Miss Jameson, on how to sit and walk. I wasn't until later that I realized what I had been doing with deep disgust. After dinner, we went back to our rooms to do any homework they had set us. I, of course, had none, so I prepared what I was going to do. First, since I had no boy clothes here, I changed into my uniform skirt and blouse. I then realized I had no coat, but I was a boy, so I knew I could manage. I was tough, and I knew it. I waited until the lights went out. My door was still unlocked, so I carefully crept down the hallway to the stairs and slowly and carefully went down them. All the time listening out for anyone coming. Thankfully no one heard me. I went to the large front door and prayed it was unlocked. It was. I gave a great big sigh of relief. I opened the door very slowly, making sure it did not creak and give me away. Thankfully, it had been maintained, so there was no squeak at all. I opened the door and slipped outside. It was drizzling, but I didn't care. I was free. I started walking down the drive to the main gates, keeping in the shadows. After about 30 minutes I reached the gate. By then I was totally soaked to the skin and freezing cold, but never mind, I thought, just keep going. As I opened the gate and cautiously slipping out and began walking down the road, I had gone about a mile when exhaustion started setting in. My body began to shake badly with the cold. My mind started going numb. I kept thinking about my nice warm bed, with my duvet covers pulled up tight around my neck. It was another 15 minutes before I realized that there was no way I was going anywhere, anytime. I sat down in a state of collapse, the drizzle running down my neck. I knew it was finished. They would probably find my body the next morning. Suddenly I saw lights coming from behind me. I was too tired to even get up or signal. The car stopped beside me, the door opened, and Ms. Birch was looking at me. She said, "Well, Sophia, I thought you would get further than this. It is quite pitiful for a so-called strong boy only to get this far. Even some girls have gone farther than you. Now get in here at once." It took all my strength just to climb into the seat. As we drove back, she said, "Just to let you know, we have been watching you all the time, from the moment you left your bedroom until now. You are such a silly girl to think we wouldn't be keeping an eye on you all the time, just in case you did something silly like this. Tomorrow morning the school will be assembled, and you will be punished on the stage in front of everyone. I hope this teaches you a valuable lesson." We arrived back at the school where the matron was waiting for us. She immediately took me to my room, stripped off my wet uniform and made me have a hot shower. I hate to admit it, but it was pure bliss. After 20 minutes of hot water running over my body, warming every part of me up, I was told to get out, get dressed and get into bed. I replied to matron's orders by saying, "Yes, matron," and collaborating with her orders. The following morning, I showered again and, without being told, put on my uniform, brushed my hair and waited on the bed ready to be called to assembly. My heart was racing as I knew what was coming, but in a strange way, I accepted the punishment, thinking that I could have died out there, all alone, with no one to miss me. It was the start of my wake-up call, I think. We were all called to the assembly. There were about 30 of us, I presume boys and girls, but I could not be sure as they dressed us all the same. At the end of the assembly, they called me onto the stage. My heart was beating faster and faster and my legs were visibly shaking. Ms. Birch called everyone to attention. Then she spelled out what I had tried to do, adding that I could have died out there, and it was lucky that I was being monitored, and they swiftly took action. I was then told to thank the teachers for their swift action and to apologize to the rest of the girls for causing so much trouble for them. I wasn't quite sure of the last bit, but I did apologize and thank the teachers, especially Ms. Birch. She thanked me, then said, "Before you are punished, I want you to know that because of your antics, there will be no cinema showing tonight for anyone, so bed is now at 7:30. I saw the look on the girls' faces. Not one groan was heard. It was just deathly silence, which was even more frightening. Ms. Birch then continued, "Since this was your first offense, and I think you may have learned a valuable lesson because of it, I have chosen cane number 6. The matron will be giving you 6 strokes of the cane on your behind. So, lift your skirt all the way to your waist and bend over this chair. You will count the strokes off one at a time. Do you understand, Sophia?" I replied, "Yes, Ms. Birch." "Good," she replied. "Now, matron, if you would do the honors of chastisement." I bent over the desk thinking at least it's not number 12. "Are you ready, girl?" Matron said. It was as if they were prolonging it as much as they could. Then swish, the first stroke. I had been caned before, but never like this, not just with panties on. I gritted my teeth hard as I could, saying, 1. Swish, I blurted out. 2. Tears were beginning to form in my eyes. Swish, I mumbled. 3. My eyes were now starting to leak badly. Swish. I just made the words 4. I looked up and saw the sympathy of the girls. Swish. My eyes were now properly crying. Tears were running down my cheeks as I said in a very quiet voice, 5. There was a short pause, then swish. It came down harder than ever. I screamed. 6. Ms. Birch said, "Well done, Sophia, for taking your punishment as a true girl would. Matron, take Sophia to the first aid room, please." I saw everyone wincing as I walked past. My skirt was still tucked into the bottom of my blouse, showing my marks of the cane. Ms. Birch stood up and spoke to the assembly. "This incident is now closed. I want no gossip about it. Right, girls, off to your prospective classes now, and no talking." Matron took me to the first aid where soothing cream was applied, but because Matron applied it, it wasn't very soothing. She said to me while applying the cream, "Sophia, was it really worth all that worry you had when you thought you were going to die, and the pain that followed your punishment?" I squeaked. "No, Matron." "Well, let's hope you've learned a good lesson today. I really hope you have." That was the first time that I heard Matron speak kindly towards me. I felt at that moment, she secretly cared about everyone, but would never show it. I put my nightie and panties on and climbed into bed. It was the worst night I think I had ever had. Wherever I moved, my bottom touched the sheets, and I was awake. Then I would change position and drop off, only for everything to be repeated time and time again. The next morning came. Ms. Birch announced a "Good morning, girls, breakfast in 30 minutes. I got up and showered, taking care with my sore but bearable now backside. Then I changed into my clean dry school uniform, checked myself in the mirror, and went down to breakfast. After we finished breakfast, the matron asked everyone to pay attention. The hall was deathly quiet anyway. We were not allowed to speak during meals. "I have an announcement to make. The following girls are to report to the hairdressers after breakfast." The names of 3 girls were called. Then to my horror, the next name was me, Sophia. After last night, I just gave a big sigh. I sat in the hairdresser's chair. She introduced herself as Janny. "Well," she said, "you have a fine mess of hair on your head. Have you ever had it styled before, Sophia?" I just shook my head and said, "No, miss, just call me Jamie, okay?" Then she gave me a great big smile. "Do you know what you want, or would you like me to decide for you?" I had no idea of styles at all, so I said, "Could I please leave it to you, Jamie?" "Of course," she said. First, she gave my hair 2 washes and then began snipping away. An hour and 40 minutes later, a rubber cap was put on my head and strands of hair pulled through the holes in the cap. The sections of hair pulled through had some smelly stuff applied to them, then silver foil was wrapped around my hair. After it had all been done, I was left for about 20 minutes. Then Jamie came back and did one and said, "That's fine." Then she took everything off. I was totally bewildered to what was happening, but she just smiled and said, "I think you will like the results, Sophia." Next up came the hairdryer and brush. She must have spent 20 minutes brushing and drying my hair. "That's it, now just some hairspray and I'm finished." After nearly drowning in hairspray, she did a few more touch-ups, then produced a mirror at the front and back of my head. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. I now had blonde streaks in my hair, and it was all wavy. There was no way you could mistake it for a boy's hair ever again. But it looked so beautiful. I knew I was still a boy, but I didn't realize how good it was to have hair which looked and felt like this. I know I sound soppy, but it was true. I thanked Jamie. I almost had tears in my eyes. She said, "Sophia, you look wonderful." I thanked her again and went to my next class, feeling my hair bouncing up and down as I walked. It was a wonderful feeling. The next 2 classes were maths and English. English was different from what I had been used to. That was when I went. Here we had not only to learn about English but on how to pronounce the words correctly, which with my accent I found quite hard, so they gave me homework on pronunciation and elocution. Then came home economics. That was a scream as I had never cooked in my life. But the teacher was very patient with me, and some of the girls gave me tips on how things should be done. I found it very absorbing and funny both at the same time. The following day was again maths and English, followed by care of your skin and body plus needlework. This carried on for at least 2 months. For some reason my anger had started to disappear, and I was starting to really take an interest in the lessons. I even made a skirt in the sewing class. The problem was it would only fit you if you had a 16-inch waist, but I really enjoyed it. After 3 months there, with no more canings I might add, Ms. Birch called me into her study. She sat as always behind her desk, but this time she asked me to pull up one of the chairs, as she had something to ask me. "Sophie," she began, "I want to ask you a very personal question. There is no right or wrong answer, but I want you to answer me truthfully. Whatever you say will not go beyond these walls. Now you have been here 3 months, and in that time I have never seen someone progress as fast as you. All your teachers speak highly of you, your elocution, home economics, your whole stature has changed for the better. In fact, I think we have found out why you were so disruptive before and when you arrived. But I digress. The question I want you to answer, truthfully now is, do you like all the lessons here, or are there some you dislike? It might seem a funny question, but it will prove or disprove my theory on you. Take your time before you answer me." I sat there and thought about when I first came to the school and what I was like, to what I am now, how everything has changed in my favor, how I really do enjoy all the lessons we do, and how much happier I feel in myself when I have accomplished something. I feel as if I belong here. I told Ms. Birch all of that. She smiled and said, "Well, it proves I was right about you, Sophie. I cannot say any more, yet. So off you go back to your classes." I replied, "Yes, Ms. Birch." As I left, I was wondering what she had been on about, but I knew she would tell me later. I had been at the school 6 months now, still without another canning or even a telling off. All my classes were going well. I could even cook a 4-course lunch and serve it up. My English and deportment with my elocution lessons were going extremely well, even my maths had dramatically improved. Even matron and I were getting along well. As some children left, more came in, and I began trying to explain to them about me, and how the school had changed me for the better, and I was happy with the results. When we had a really bad case, matron took over, and that stopped that. Not all people were helped, some were too far gone. I expected the next stop for them would be a prison. But on the whole, things worked out for the rest, I'm glad to say. It was on Monday that Ms. Birch again called me into her office. Again I sat on the chair. I thought I knew what was coming. My time there was finished, and I would be returning home. As I sat there, a tear formed in my eye. Ms. Birch asked what was wrong. I replied, "I have to leave, my time is up, I understand, but you all have taught me so much, and to be honest with you, I don't want to leave. I love it here, I love trying to help the other children." I stopped and apologized for making a scene. Ms. Birch smiled and said, "That's not what I called you here for, Sophie, but I am glad of what you have just told me. Now let me explain something to you. It will make you understand more. When you first came here, we thought you were just another boy who wanted taming, if you excuse the expression. But as the days went on after you received your punishment, we all started to see a small change in you. It was small, but it gradually grew. I will explain further. In certain classes, English, manners, elocution, home economics, you really started to shine in those lessons. Then you have taken to heart your grooming, your clothes. In fact, I have never seen a crease in your skirt or blouse, and I am told by matron that you iron your uniform every night. You took pride in what you were wearing. For a boy, that is quite unusual, shall we say, especially since you are wearing girls' clothes. You seem more confident, yet calmer. You take time and patience with the younger children. You explain things to them. It's never too much trouble for you. I believe that has been your problem right from the start. One side of your brain was trying to tell you something, but the other side was rebelling against it violently. Hence your who attitude was going completely haywire. But since you have been here, everything about you has changed. You have gone from an obnoxious child to a quite mature young lady of nearly 15. Feel free to tell me that I am wrong." I went red in the face. I knew what she meant. I had realized several weeks ago just how happy I was wearing a skirt and blouse and being always referred to as Sophia. I loved going to the classes, which made me feel more like a girl with girlish manners, and how to behave as a girl. I really loved them all. Thinking to myself, I thought, damn it, be honest, girl. Looking straight up to meet Ms. Birch's eyes, then taking a deep breath, I said, "Yes, it's all true. I have felt like this for years, but the only thing I knew to assert my maleness was to become as aggressive and obnoxious as I could. Then it just became a way of life for me. It wasn't until I tried to run away and then got punished that I realized that instead of breaking me down, you were letting the inside girl of me out into the real world. I was free, even if it was for only a few months." Ms. Birch smiled at me and said, "I am so pleased for you, Sophia. You seem to have found your real self. I am just so happy for you." "Now, one more thing," she said. "Your time expires here in another 3 weeks." My face dropped. "But I can recommend that you should stay another 3 months." A great big smile came across my lips. "I have talked it over with your mother and sought advice with the teachers about what I am going to suggest. Firstly, your mother agrees on you staying, as she put it. That's fine with me. I will be honest, it's been bliss not having him here." Sophie, 4 years later, the second thing is that now we know your honest thoughts on the matter of who you are. The teachers and I have decided to make you a head girl for at least the next 3 months. Your privileges are that you will have a small allowance to buy your own underwear and light makeup. The choices on what style you buy will be up to you. You will also be allowed to wear tights or stockings. Again, it will be up to you. The last thing will be your head girl badge. Though you will have no real power, you can help all the other people around you, and you will also help the teachers in their lessons. Would you like that, Sophia? I was by now crying, thanking Ms. Birch over and over again. Epilogue: I stayed at the school for a further 6 months. When the time came for me to leave, I left as Sophie. I am now studying to become a teacher after I have qualified. Ms. Birch said that they would welcome me back as a member of her all-woman staff.